There is a story buried in the back pages of wartime field manuals, often overshadowed by the more dramatic equipment of the era. While everyone focuses on weapons, engines and steel, soldiers on the ground were fighting a quieter, equally deadly enemy cold. Frostbite claimed toes, fingers, and sometimes entire battalions long before bullets did. And in this desperate struggle, one invention, built from simple materials and shaped like a hollow tube, allowed soldiers to sleep through brutal winter nights without freezing. For the first minute of this guide, understand this clearly. The cold killed men more efficiently than enemy fire in many World War II campaigns, from the forests of the Ardennes to the mountains of Albania. Armies needed a lightweight portable solution, something sturdier than a blanket, but easier to haul than the bulky sleeping bags of the time. That solution ended up being a piece of gear most people today have never heard of. Yet it worked so well that reenactors, bushcrafters and military historians still use the underlying principles today. Now let's get into the real value of this forgotten design. The tube worked because it used the soldier's own heat instead of trying to fight the cold. Most modern sleeping bags attempt to trap warm air, but early versions had a major flaw. They lost heat fast whenever the sleeper shifted, creating drafts along the seams. The wartime tube avoided that problem by being exactly what the name suggests. A long insulated cylinder open at both ends. Soldiers would crawl into it with their greatcoats still on. The coat provided the first layer of insulation, the tube provided the second, and the overlapping fabrics sealed warm air far more efficiently than a bag that zipped down the side. The design borrowed principles from both animal burrows and traditional Arctic bedrolls. Heat moves upward, so the tube minimized vertical escape points. Moisture, the real enemy of warmth, condensed along the inner layer rather than on the soldier's clothing. This wasn't accidental. It was engineered through materials that wicked water outward. In extreme temperatures where frostbite could develop within minutes, this simple shift of moisture could save a life. The materials were chosen deliberately to handle wet snow, wind and ground freeze. What made the World War II tube superior wasn't just its shape, but its layers. The outer shell was tightly woven canvas treated with a wax-oil mixture that resisted snow and blocked wind. Unlike today's synthetic fibres, this canvas actually became more windproof as the fibres swelled with moisture. The inner layer was wool, still one of the best cold-weather materials ever created. Wool retains insulation even when wet, something cotton and early nylon could not achieve. To increase ground insulation, soldiers often added spruce boughs, straw, or even their own empty ration sacks beneath the tube. That combination created what modern survivalists now call a micro-environment, a warm air pocket that stayed consistent throughout the night. In freezing rain, sleet, or blowing snow, the tube outperformed the standard-issue sleeping bags of the 1940s because it didn't collapse or compress as easily. Soldiers used the tube in practical ways that show why it lasted through the harshest campaigns. One of the most common field techniques was creating a raised bedding surface. Soldiers would, scrape together a shallow trench, lay down branches to lift themselves off the frozen ground, slide into the tube and use their pack as a footstop to keep the structure from twisting. This prevented their body weight from flattening the insulation, which is honestly a mistake that still ruins modern sleeping bags today. Another field use involved stacking two tubes when temperatures dropped below -20 degrees Celsius. The inner tube provided heat, while the outer acted as a wind shell. This layering principle is exactly the same as the principle behind Arctic expedition gear today. Yet World War II troops were applying it long before such expeditions became common. In soaked terrain, soldiers placed their rain poncho beneath the tube, not above it. This choice prevented moisture from wicking up from the soil, and honestly, the canvas tube handled the overhead precipitation better than any tarp then available. Modern survivalists can still apply the principles behind the World War II tube effectively. You do not need a replica tube to benefit from its design. The method still works using gear you likely already own. Start by constructing a cylinder using a wool blanket as the inner layer and a heavy canvas tarp as the outer shell. Fold the blanket into a long strip and lay it inside the canvas. Then roll both into a tube wide enough for you to crawl into. Tuck the edges under your body to trap heat. This replicates the original insulation profile. Next, elevate yourself above the ground using brush leaves or even your empty backpack. The tube system depends on maintaining loft, so anything that lifts your body away from cold soil will magnify warmth. If temperatures drop further, add an additional outer wrap, another tarp, or even a second wool blanket. Each layer traps a separate pocket of air, exactly as soldiers did during mountain campaigns. For emergency use, the method adapts surprisingly well. If you only have a poncho and a blanket, you can still create a crude tube that keeps moisture outside and heat inside. Even in environments where synthetic sleeping bags perform poorly, such as constant drizzle or near-freezing wet snow, the tube system remains reliable because its strength lies in structure, not technology. This World War II design was never glamorous, never celebrated, and rarely mentioned in documentaries, but it worked in the worst winter campaigns of the war. It required no batteries, no zippers, no fragile insulation materials. It operated on airflow control, layered natural fibers, and intelligent shaping. For history buffs and survival-minded viewers, it stands as proof that older technologies often solve problems with elegant simplicity. If you value more deep-dive explorations into forgotten innovations like this, make sure to subscribe, share the video, and help keep these practical pieces of history alive.